There's something tender about giving forgotten things a second life. In the quiet corner of this garden, an old teapot, once the heart of kitchen, now overflows with marigolds. The handle is slightly bent, and the spout has lost its shine, but none of that matters. What was once used a warm morning, tea now warms the heart with unexpected blooms. This vintage kettle wasn't purchased in the store. It was found in a dusty cabinet, rescued from the edge of discard. With a soft scrub and a few drainage holes punched into the base, it found its new calling, cradling soil, roots, and a wild tangle of greens and color. There's charm and imperfection. The scratches on its enamel hold stories. The steam that once rose from it has been replaced by bees gently landing on zinnias growing from within. When placed on a stone ledge or hung from a tree branch with a wire handle, the kettle becomes a storybook accent, a whisper from the past speaking in blooms. To try this yourself, start by checking your own kitchen or local thrift shop. Look for kettles, teapots, or pans that seem too worn for cooking but too beautiful to throw away. Paint them or leave them rustic. Add pebbles at the base for drainage, then soil, and finally, your favorite cheerful plant. Tiny ferns, succulents, or miniature roses work beautifully. In this garden, nothing is truly old, just waiting for its next chapter. Sometimes, beauty grows in layers, quietly, vertically, tenderly. An old ladder, once destined to rest forgotten in a shed, now leans proudly in the garden like a seasoned storyteller. Between its rungs, wooden drawers, some cracked, others stained by time, cradle blooms and herbs with patient grace. This piece didn't begin as decor. It began as a leftover, both ladder and drawers salvaged from past chapters of the home. But with little sanding, a coat of breathable paint, and some thoughtful placement, they found purpose again, becoming a vertical garden that speaks of ingenuity, warmth, and memory. Each drawer is a stage. In one, time spills over like green lace. Another holds dusty pink petunias reaching for morning sun. And tucked higher up, tiny strawberries blush quietly under their own leaves. You can smell mint when the wind blows, and sea bees hover from one tier to the next like a staircase of nectar. The charm of this project lies in its layers, not just of plants, but of time. It's ideal for small spaces too, as it invites you to grow upward when you can't grow outward. To create your own, find an old ladder. What is best for a warm, aged look? Attach drawers or shallow crates across the rungs. Secure them well, and drill holes for drainage. Let the imperfections stay. Fill each tier with plants that cascade or burst in color. Prop it against a wall, fence, or tree. With this design, you don't just build a plant stand. You build a vertical memory of what was and what can grow next. The soles are worn thin, the lace is frayed, and the leather soft with age. Once they walked miles through mud, city streets, maybe even a dance or two, but now they stand still, quiet guardians of blossoms. Turning old boots into garden planters is more than a quirky reuse. It's a tribute to the journeys behind them. Each scuff becomes part of the story, a reminder that every object carries memory and every step leaves a mark, even long after the path ends. In this garden, the boots rest beneath a shady fig tree. Morning light slides across their faded tongues and into the roots of the petunias inside. A little hole cut at the sole allows excess water to escape, and a layer of gravel beneath the soil keeps the drainage healthy. Some boots still bear the imprints of toes that once pressed forward with determination. Now, they hold zinnias, mint, or even strawberries in summer. The magic is in their oddness. No two boots are the same, and no two planters should be either. Whether you use lace-up leather boots, colorful rubber ones, or even an old work boot left behind in the garage, they all hold the same potential. A bit of cleaning, a splash of imagination, and they become living sculptures. Place them along a garden path or on a step. Let them surprise your visitors. Draw a smile, start a conversation. Because here, even something as humble as an old boot can bloom. Once, it rolled along dusty roads, steady, purposeful, a quiet rhythm beneath the weight of harvests. Now, the old cartwheel rests among the blooms, its spokes no longer turning, but radiating life in a different way. There's poetry in this kind of stillness. The wheel, worn by time and weather, now stands like an emblem of rustic memory. Set against a backdrop of wooden fencing or propped upright on soil, it offers its circular form as a frame for garden wonder. Each spoke becomes a place to hang, cradle, or train something living. Some wrap it with wire baskets filled with petunias. Others let vines curl naturally around the rim. Tiny terracotta pots can be wedged between the joints or tied gently with twine for a floating effect. The result is a living sculpture that feels as if it's always belonged, like the garden was built around it. The key is to let it age naturally. Don't repaint it too clean. Let the rust show. Let the wood splinter a little. That's where its soul lives. And when paired with soft, swaying plants, lavender, sweet alyssum, or nasturtiums, the contrast between wild and weather becomes quietly striking. If you're lucky enough to find an old wheel at a salvage yard or antique market, take it home. It doesn't need to spin anymore to serve a purpose. It only needs a space in your garden and a few blooming friends to complete the story. Because even when it no longer turns, a wheel can still move hearts. Not all beauty begins as beautiful. Sometimes it starts as rubber, worn from long drives and dusty roads, stacked in shadows behind garages, forgotten, cracked, and tired. And yet, in the right hands, even these old tires can bloom. In this garden, they've been transformed, coated in layers of cheerful paint, turquoise, coral, lemon. They rise like a totem of color among the greens. Each tire is filled with earth and hope, layered into a floral tower that makes a statement both playful and purposeful. There's something wonderful about the contrast. The ruggedness of tire treads hugging delicate stems of cosmos or trailing lobelia. It feels like rebellion in bloom. It's messy. It's joyful. It's real. This project doesn't require fancy tools. Just clean the tires well. Choose outdoor paint in your favorite colors and stack them safely on level ground. Secure them with metal rods if needed, especially if you go above 2 layers. Fill each one with pebble for drainage, then rich soil and a mix of flowers, tall in the center, cascading at the edges. You can even dedicate each layer to a different herb or hue. For smaller yards or urban patios, this idea is a space saver too. It lifts your garden off the ground, creates instant visual interest, and gives new life to what would otherwise go to waste. In the end, it's not just a stack of tires. It's a celebration of color, of resilience, and of seeing possibility in the overlooked. Every garden needs a touch of movement, even if it stands still. A wheelbarrow, once a tool of labor and load, finds new life here as a vessel of color. Where it once carried bricks or compost, it now carries soil kissed by seedlings and dreams stitched in leaves. The charm of a mobile garden lies not only in its function, but in its freedom. A wheelbarrow turn planter can be rolled across your yard to chase the sun, escape heavy rain, or greet guests like a blooming invitation at the gate. It doesn't ask for perfection. It welcomes patina, rust, and story. In this little mobile bed, herbs tumble freely, oregano, parsley, and a wild sprig of mint curling over the edge. Marigolds line the rim like a golden fence. In spring, it hums with bees. In fall, it glows with earthy tones. Repurposing a wheelbarrow is a kind gesture to the past. Start with one that's stable, even if it creaks. Drill a few drainage holes at the base, line it with gravel or coconut fiber, and pile in rich, loose soil. Choose plants that play well together, like leafy greens and edible flowers, or keep it simple with one bold color. Set under a tree, beside your porch, or roll it into the center of your garden. Wherever it rests, it brings more than blooms. It brings memory, flexibility, and the quiet joy of seeing something old keep moving. This time, not with weight, but with wonder. There's a certain comfort in earthenware. Its soft ochre tones, the way it warms in the sun, and how it holds moisture like a gentle keeper roots. When clay pots and wooden barrels come together, they build a humble corner of life, sturdy and slow-growing. In this garden, the pots are not arranged with precision, but with affection. A small terracotta pot leans slightly, resting against its larger cousin, both brimming with blooms. The barrel, once filled with wine or rainwater, now holds a layered display of salvia and cascading alyssum. Together, they create not a statement piece, but a sanctuary. The beauty here lies in texture and time. The clay darkens where it's been kissed by dew. The wood of the barrel cracks softly, its iron rings rusting just so. This is where bees stop first in the morning, and where your hands smell like basil after watering. Creating your own flower patch from pots and barrels is both forgiving and flexible. Use what you have. Mismatched sizes, chip rims, age containers. Group them in odd numbers for visual rhythm. Fill them with herbs and hardy blooms, things that spill and sway in the breeze. Let them rest on their sides, spilling trailing plants like waterfalls. Place them near a wall, under a pergola, or even by your kitchen window. This patch doesn't need perfect symmetry. It needs warmth. And over time, as the plants grow and the pots settle into their place, it will feel less like a design and more like home. A bird cage was once built to contain flight, delicate, ornate, and always slightly bittersweet. But here in this garden, cages no longer hold birds, they cradle blossoms. And in doing so, they whisper a new kind of freedom. Dangling beneath the low branches of an old orange tree, a white birdcage sways gently in the breeze. Inside, a tumble of trailing ivy spills between the bars, and baby's breath peeks through like lace. Another cage nearby, gold round and open at the top, hosts a cluster of hens and chicks, soft and thick with life. These bird cages come from antique markets and forgotten corners of sheds. Some still have little doors that creak. Others are bent just slightly, the metal softened by rain and sun. But that imperfection is what makes them so honest, like they belong more to a secret garden than to a shelf. Turning a bird cage into a planter doesn't take much. Just a touch of wire mesh at the base to hold soil, a bit of coconut fiber for support, and plants that thrive in tight spaces. Think moss, succulents, tiny ferns, or even flowering vines that reach outward. Hang them from trees, from pergola beams, or shepherd's hooks. Vary the heights. Let them swing, cast shadows, shimmer with droplets after the rain. These aren't just planters. They're suspended daydreams, floating altars to beauty, memory, and transformation. And perhaps, when the wind stirs them and the light filters through, you'll hear the softest echo of wings, still free. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. They're meant to hold life instead. In this quiet backyard, one such door stands tall. Its knobs are long gone. The hinges creak when touched by wind, and the layers of paint tell of many lives before this one. Now, it doesn't separate rooms. It connects earth to sky. As a trellis, the repurposed door has become something new and poetic. Against its grain, delicate tendrils of sweet pea curl upward. A faded green vine slips behind the panels, holding tight as it climbs. Small wooden boxes have been screwed into its frame, each one a tiny bed of soil, spilling color. This project begins not with lumber, but with memory. A door found in a salvage yard, or the back of a shed. It might be warped, chipped, cracked, and that's exactly what gives it its charm. You don't need to sand away the years. Let them stay. Simply reinforce the base if needed and anchor into the soil, or lean it against a stable wall or post. Attach a few hooks, planters, or climbing guides, or simply let nature take over. Let morning glories wrap it in blues and purples. Let nasturtiums hang like ruffled skirts. With time, the door becomes a living wall, shifting with seasons, alive with scent, color, and sound. There's a quiet satisfaction in turning something once used to divide into something that now helps things grow. It reminds us that the end of one purpose is often just the start of another, especially in the garden. In a corner of the yard where the breeze moves gently through the leaves, an old-fashioned well rises, not for water, but for wonder. It doesn't draw from the earth, but from the imagination, becoming a centerpiece of charm and a quiet invitation to linger. This garden well isn't functional in the traditional sense. It won't fill your pail on a summer day, but it does hold something deeply refreshing, a sense of nostalgia, of storybook gardens, of simpler moments. Its wood is warm but sturdy. The bucket hangs still, and tiny vines curl around its beams as if they've always known to grow there. Built from salvaged planks or leftover fencing, the well is a simple structure, a circular or square base, 2 upright posts, and a crossbeam to suspend a pail or planter. Some are topped with a wooden shingled roof. Others are left open to the sky. You can paint it soft white, leave it raw, or stain it to match your fence. The secret is in the details. perhaps a carved heart on the post, a bucket overflowing with petunias, or a climbing vine wrapping its way toward the roof. Around the base, you might plant low blooms, alyssum, creeping thyme, or dwarf daisies. The well becomes not just a focal point, but a nest for small moments, a place to pause, to sit nearby, to feel the seasons shift. It's not just about building a feature. It's about building a feeling, a little corner where the garden sighs softly, and something timeless lingers in the air. Somewhere between structure and sky, a pergola rises, humble in form, generous in spirit. It doesn't shout for attention, but quietly shelters what grows and what gathers beneath it. Its beams are bare at first, but over time, they become veiled with leaves and blossoms, a canopy alive with light and shade. In this garden, the pergola was built not from polished timber, but from what carried home with callous hands. Weathered fence posts, leftover beams when neighbors tear down, a few nails rusted but strong. And then the real architects took over. The vines. Jasmine threads its way through the slats, exhaling sweetness in the evenings. Morning glories unwrap themselves at sunrise, painting blues and purples against the sky. Even grapes, in time, may find their place, trailing clusters between the rafters like hanging lanterns of summer. A pergola offers more than shade. It offers rhythm, light flickering through the lattice, shadows shifting with each hour. It becomes a stage for everything beneath, a table where coffee cools slowly, a bench where stories rest, a floor where petals fall. To build one, you don't need perfection. You need patience, and posts set firm into the earth. The vines will do the rest, climbing, reaching, softening every angle. This is where structure yields the softness, where garden meets architecture, and where beneath the leaves you might sit one day with bare feet, feeling the air move through the green above and thinking, this is what peace looks like. Drawers are meant to hold things, but in the garden, they don't need to close. They open to the sun, to the soil, to the idea that storage can become sanctuary. Here, lying in a crooked little staircase, old drawers, rescued from cabinets and wardrobes long gone, find new purpose in green. There's something beautifully honest about it. No perfect symmetry, no matching handles, just layers of life, one above the other, as if the plants are climbing slowly toward the light. The bottom drawer holds rosemary and thyme. The middle one bursts with marigolds. At the top, a brave little cherry tomato peeks over the side. Each drawer tells its own story. One still smells faintly of cedar. Another has a crack running down its side, softened with age and rain. The paint chips easily, revealing layers of colors from decades past. But it all adds to the character, the lived-in charm that makes this more than a garden display. It makes it a memory stack. Creating this piece doesn't require carpentry, just balance and care. Arrange the drawers in a stable staircase shape, perhaps supported with bricks or placed along a slope. Drill drainage holes underneath. Fill them loosely with soil and stagger your plantings, greens low, blooms high, or herbs throughout. Let a bit of moss settle in the corners. Tuck them into a garden nook near a bench or wall where they can catch the golden hour light. They'll invite smiles, comments, maybe even a few nostalgic sighs. After all, what once had socks and spoons now grows thyme and lavender. And in that quiet transformation, there's something almost magical. What once held paint, beans, or oil now holds roots. Along the trunk of an old mango tree, a quiet transformation has taken place. Rusted cans, lined and layered, have become unlikely homes for life. Their metal is dented, some with faded labels, others raw and oxidized. But from their mouths bloom marigolds, thyme, and even the gentle brush of trailing mint. This project began not with a plan, but with a pause, a glance at the pile of empties by the back door, and the tree that had grown a little bare near its base. With a drill, some wire, and a few handfuls of soil, the space between became a celebration of possibility. Each can was cleaned, punctured for drainage, and mounted, some wrapped in twine. Others hung from nails hammered gently into bark or side posts. The tree didn't seem to mind. In fact, it seemed to smile, its trunk now dressed in color and life, in layers of rusting green. The beauty of this idea is in its ease. You don't need a perfect tree or perfect cans. The rougher, the better. Let the patina stay. Let the water mark the sides. Paint a few if you must, in colors that match the flowers they cradle. Fill them with hardy herbs, tiny blooms, or succulents that thrive in containers. As the wind moves through the garden, the cans might clink gently, a soft metallic lullaby echoing through the leaves. And just like that, waste becomes wonder, not hidden, not buried, but proudly nailed to the living. Because sometimes growth begins when you choose not to throw something away. Every suitcase holds a story, some of travel, some of time. But in this garden, one old suitcase tells a story of rebirth, no longer packed with clothes or tucked under a bed, but open wide to hold a tangle of green and bloom. It sits gently on a bench, as if waiting for a train that no longer runs. The leather is cracked, its corners scuffed from years of movement. But now, it cradles marigolds and mint, their roots pressing into soil layered with plastic lining and gravel for drainage. It doesn't need wheels anymore. Its journey continues without moving an inch. There's something deeply romantic about it. The idea that something so designed for departure now becomes a place of stillness. Birds perch on its edge. Bees dip briefly inside. The suitcase, once rushed through stations and terminals, now breathes in slow garden air. To create your own, find an old suitcase, hard shell or soft, vintage or simply forgotten. Line it well with plastic or a planter tray to protect the interior. Drill or pierce tiny holes at the base to let water escape. Fill it with loose, healthy soil and choose your companions. Herbs, pansies, sedum, or succulents. Rest it on a wooden bench, an old stool, or even a stump. Let the lid fall back open naturally. Let moss creep up its side if it wants to. Over time, the suitcase will settle into its place, and your garden will gain not just a planter, but a gentle reminder that beauty can arrive even when the journey ends and stay rooted quietly in one place. Some reflections are made not of glass, but of green. In this garden corner, where bricks meet sunlight, an old mirror frame, once hung in a hallway or above a dresser, now reflects life in the most unexpected way. Its frame is ornate, slightly chipped, the paint faded into elegance. But where the mirror once showed faces, it now holds thyme, basil, and the soft scent of mint. Mounted on a wall, it catches the light differently now. Sun flickers through leaves instead of bouncing off glass. The herbs sway gently where once only stillness lived. The entire piece becomes a window into growth, a quiet reclaiming of beauty from what once served another purpose. Creating this is simpler than it seems. The mirror is removed carefully, replaced with mesh grid or wooden backing. Small planters, fabric pouches, or even shallow containers are attached within the frame, space like artwork. Each one holds soil and a carefully chosen herb, those that enjoy shallow roots and good air, like parsley, sage, or oregano. As the plants grow, their texture spills softly over the edge. When the wind blows, the whole wall breathes. It's no longer a static object. It becomes part of the cycle, changing day by day, season by season. Hang it beside a doorway, under a pergola, or along a sunlit wall. Water gently. Harvest often. And in those quiet moments when your hands brush through rosemary or pinch thyme for dinner, you'll realize this mirror doesn't reflect you. It reflects your intention to live with care, creativity, and rooted beauty. It no longer holds a person, but it holds something just as full of life. In the shade of a flowering tree, an old chair sits quietly, its wooden arms softened by years of weather. The seat has disappeared, and in its place grows a mosaic of succulents. Tight rosettes, delicate spikes, and trailing strands that reach over the edge like whispers. The chair once served its purpose at the dinner table or on a porch. But here it has been reborn, not discarded, not forgotten. Its worn legs rest on soil now, not hardwood floors, and instead of bearing weight, it bears beauty. This display isn't loud. It doesn't need blooms or towering leaves. It's quiet and slow-growing. Succulents, with their muted blues, purples, and soft greens, fill the chair's frame with calm resilience. Each one holds water, holds shape, holds stillness. Some catch morning, do like glass beads. Others spread like slow-motion fire. Making one is simpler than you think. Find a chair, wooden, metal, chipped, or curved. Remove the seat and replace it with chicken wire or shallow planter. Line it with coconut fiber or landscape fabric to hold soil. Then nestle in your succulents, mixing height, color, and form. Water sparingly. Let the sun and time do the rest. Place the chair where someone might stop to admire it. A garden corner, beside a bench, at the edge of a stone path. Let it invite curiosity. Let it age further, gracefully, as the plants settle in. Because some things are meant to last, not in their original form, but in the joy they bring after being reimagined.